up, gets nothing effect, has that one taken away by Troy Hellman. It seems like this could be.
Hello and welcome to the Overwatch League Recap, a talk show focusing on the Overwatch League. I am Blazin Bob, and today I'm joined by iPly Games. How you doing, iPly?
Oh, hello. I see what you're going back to.
Yep,
This
yeah.
was where the first time we met, I kept teasing Bob with his name, just pronounced it Blazing Bob. So he started teasing me back, pronouncing mine Apply Games.
Yep, and it just specifically goes to a 3-star review that we got on iTunes this last week. A listener was not happy with the conversation on Luffy, where I said he should be Luffy because puffy, snuffy, toughy, but I'm sorry, you're probably a new listener, but it's like an inside joke because we spell our names wrong too. Like we make fun of FRD. We actually made fun of FRD in person. And he made fun back. It's just kind of like an inside joke. So I'm sorry that you didn't enjoy that, and we will try to be a little more sarcastic in the future. But I am also
Wait, hold on. I love how you just decided. It's not that we're going to stop being sarcastic. I'm doubling down, just being clear on my sarcasm from now on. Okay?
Yep. Because I feel like he thought we were disconnected in our knowledge of the league, and it's not that. We were just making fun of the name, and we can do that because our names are spelled wrong too. You know what I mean?
Listen, my name's spelled right, and I'm still going to call FRD Fred. It's just going to happen.
Well, speaking of that, we also have Mel here. What's going on, Mel?
Hello. I don't have anything witty to say. That's really all.
All right,
I'm saving all my witty comments for later. Don't worry.
Okay, cool. Well, also, we have the poster child for 222, the original 222 gangsta in Freedo from Your Overwatch. Welcome back to the show. It's always a pleasure to have you, sir.
Such a hype intro. Now, I'm scared because if for any reason 222 is not successful, I feel like you almost made it my fault or something. You know what I mean? It's like you invented
Grab your pitchforks.
Where you're like the destroyer of competitive integrity. Bring him right up. It's like, hi guys. So it's like, wasn't the last time I was on the show? It's like every time I'm on the show, we're talking about 222. I forgot about that entirely. There's a running theme here. So
yes.
We finally have it now. We don't have to speculate, and actually have quite a lot to talk about in regards to it. So excited to jump right in.
A whole new world. A new fantastic Okay, I'll stop. But yeah, we have a lot to get into, so let's just jump in because this has been a wild week. I'd like to start off the show always by thanking our recap producer Shazir, and thanks to Siegel #1 fanboy for continuing to put our stuff on Reddit. I just noticed recently that we have a lot of comments that I have to reply to, which I didn't even know because I don't get on Reddit because it's scary.
Sorry, you noticed?
Sorry, Mel noticed and let me know so that I could take care of it.
As all good relationships operate. This dynamic, I'm very familiar. So continue.
All right, so just jumping in real quick, league news. So introducing league pick'ems. They're calling them league picks, but it's basically pick'ems that you do right in the Twitch cast. Mel, do you want to tell everyone about this really actually new, I can't think of the word, but
feature, I guess.
Feature, but what's the word for bringing involvement?
It's like
interactive. Yeah, engaging interaction with the viewers rather than them just jumping on to make sure that they get their skins.
I also think it'll be more, I don't know, integrated into people who actually are watching the game or doing pick'ems and things like that and competing with each other. And I think people really enjoyed that. And they said there will be a little hypothesize on match or map specific kind of questions that they're going to ask you. But it's not just to earn Overwatch League tokens. I'm pretty sure there's like prizes and stuff too, right?
Prizes like
Like
for
like what? Like cash prices?
probably
no, I
in-game prizes, I'm guessing.
don't think
I'm guessing you could like
2 loot boxes, boys. Here we go.
I'm gonna be queuing for
Blizz bucks.
tank, and I'm gonna just be getting loot boxes out the wazoo, which might actually matter now because I only have to play 2 accounts now, as opposed to 5 before. But we will get into that. Let's just go through quick news. It's not as much as Freedo had to go through on High Noon podcast because we covered Fraggy and stuff before. So
Free Fraggy.
Fraggy is free.
Well,
Shanghai
not
Dragons.
yet.
Yeah, true. Shanghai Dragons side is Izzyaki. Izzyaki played on the Valiant. He was a really good fantasy play for me early on till Kareev took over for him, but he's going to the Dragons. Do you guys think he sees play time here in stage 4, or do you think they stick with Coma and Luffy?
I think Izyaki's got the stronger Zen, so he'll probably come in on that. I think there's a lot of times I'm probably gonna say it wrong too. Luffy, I think is what
Luffy is how he
the-
pronounces it. Yes.
the fans are demanding. I guess it's like an anime reference or something, which
Yep.
makes me want to say it wrong just to make them mad. But Luffy, anyway, I don't think looked great on Zen, but really popped off on Ana, especially in the grand finals. Just tons of sleeps and nades were finding picks. Like it wasn't just the DPS popping off, that whole team was. And I think you don't really mess with a good thing. We'll probably talk about this maybe a bit later, but the Dragons are a team that I think fit kind of seamlessly into 222. Granted, they do lose their comp somewhat, but playing with some damage is much closer to 222 than goats to damage entirely, right? Like they played a whole stage largely with these comps and the synergies and the playstyles around them. Yes, there's some tools they have to alter, but they wouldn't want to mix too much up, basically. And I think Ana will be good, so Luffy will probably play the most. But having a strong backup is never a bad thing.
Yeah,
Right.
something I noticed a lot though in that grand finals match is Luffy was getting a lot of protection. Like there were so many times where he was down to like 10 health and his team, and it wasn't just one person, the entire team would come to his aid. And so I'm wondering if he was just doing a really good job of calling out when he needed help, which lots of supports in game just don't do.
That's
I-
not true. You just tone us out when we do it.
Hey, what's that? What's that?
Yeah.
Press forward, W?
Like,
Okay.
Mel, why didn't you say you were getting attacked? I was like, oh, it's fine. I just said it 27 times.
This is like need help, 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 need
I'm
help.
dead.
Why didn't you ask for help? What do you think I play?
I think that the Shanghai Dragons are looking really good. Yeah, going into 222, I don't see them slowing down at all. Their players fit really well together. Pharmacy is still going to be a monster, especially if you have players like the Shanghai Dragons on the Pharah. Um, so
Well, here.
I don't know. I think that they're looking in great shape.
Let me pose this to you then. Do you think Zen is going to be in the 222 meta? Like that's the question here. That's if Zen's in, Izzyaki gets playtime. So do you think Zen's going to be in the meta?
It's hard to really tell, but I don't see Zen being completely like thrown out of the meta. You have less options now, so you have to be a little bit more decisive on what healers you're gonna take, right? If you take the Ana Lucio or you take the Zen Lucio, but like depending what ultimates and what compositions the enemy team is running, Transcendence and having that extra damage with Discord Orb is still really valuable, especially if you're running things like Dive or still with you have a fair. I think that Zen still fits in there, so. I
I mean, you
see him
could
getting some
potentially
playtime.
have like Zenana in some compositions, right? And then maybe they'd both play.
Yeah. Yeah. Zen fits into so many compositions and he counters so many things that I think that he'll always have a spot. If you're trying to go in that offensive role, right? If you want that extra damage. And now that you have more limited roles, that might look appealing sometimes, right? For a team like Dragons that is used to having that super offensive pressure of having 3 DPS. That might be something that they're looking for going into the 2-2-2. Baptiste can do it to a smaller degree. I think that Anna can also DPS a little bit. I mean, we've seen the sniper Annas just taking Faras down, like Karib, for example. So I think that that support role might have to pick up the slack on the DPS on some points.
We also saw Coma pulling out the Mercy Blaster, so
Yeah, Mercy
Trying to be
Valkyrie against
Neptuna.
Pharmacy is actually pretty effective because
Yep.
Pharah is like a sitting target in the air for her.
Nothing's more entertaining than when you're shooting Farah from above, right? Because Farah never like looks a hut above her unless there's another Farah, so you can just shoot her while she's shooting, doesn't even notice. But let's be real here. He wasn't going to get playtime on LA Valiant because Karif was a better Zen and Ana at a lot of times. And so I think his best bet was to go to the Shanghai Dragons. And even if he plays that, niche role of Zen and then backs up Luffy in the Ana role if Luffy's sick or anything like that, I think it's good for Shanghai.
yeah, I think Izzyaki couldn't understand English as well as Kuriv can. Kuriv, you can talk to him, he'll know exactly what you're saying. He can't speak English as well, but he could definitely communicate with the average person, and he could definitely understand you when you're talking English. I think Izzyaki was new to English, so I think this is a better fit for him overall. So Munchkin will be inactive for Soul Dynasty in Stage 4. What's this all about, Mel?
I don't know. At least he didn't retire, right? And then come back in season 3. Like, I'm just saying, at least he just said, I'm going to take a break. But I'm guessing it's something similar to, just burnout and they know they're going to Seoul in next season, right? And he's like, I just need to go back. I need to recoup.
Go home. Yeah,
and
true.
I'll meet you guys here when you get back.
All right, well, we have Optidox joins Defiant as assistant coach. Now, I am always very honest about this, whereas I think lots of people aren't. I have no clue who Optidox is. Does anybody?
Coach Montreal, right? I'm pretty sure I follow him on Twitter, and that must mean he's smart. So
he said something at some point. Well, you follow me, so that makes me feel good.
Well, you're awesome, Bob. Why wouldn't I?
He retracts his last statement. Just so you know.
Yeah. So I don't know Contenders as well as I used to. I used to watch it a ton, and Goats meta. I just no, I'm not studying Contenders Goats. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, dude, you actually we tried to have you on in Stage 3, I think week 2, and you were like, yeah, I'm not really watching it because Goats. But then you messaged me later and was like, dude, this has been one of the best stages ever. I wish I would have watched the start. But you probably jumped back in week 3 after that, right?
I watched some of the marquee games in Stage 3. I mean, I still followed it, right? So the cool thing is there's so much coverage. I watch so many podcasts like your guys' show and obviously all the other shows that are out there that are really strong. So I'm still in the loop, and I did tune in to some interesting matchups. Like Houston was on a good run, and wanted to see how NYXL were doing, and a few teams. But there was a lot of redundancy in the Goats meta, where it's okay, this is another team that plays Sombra Goats. They're gonna EMP each other in about a minute, and it's just the same stuff over and over again. So yeah, I watched all the playoffs though, and did predict Shanghai to win. So coming right back into a prediction game, picked them to beat Vancouver and the Shock. So I'm feeling pretty good. My predictions are 2-0.
So you and Bren are equals now. Is that what you're trying to say?
Do not
compare.
Do
Freedo
not
to Brent,
put them
the
in the
genius.
same boat at all. Brent is an entertainer. Freedo is an entertainer and an analyst.
And a wannabe analyst. Yeah, exactly.
I was just claiming that they both had the same picks. It was just an observation, guys.
All right. Well, okay, that gets the news out of the way.
Well, wait. One small thing about this, though. I think we all know that Defiant needed more help and more coaching. So I think whether we know who this is or not, I think them signing another coach to assist in their, gameplay, I think is a positive, right? So overall, I think we can look at this as they have an extra head in the game, and now, maybe it's not going to make the end of the world difference, but it can't hurt a ton unless he's,
I think
If you have
idiot.
way too many coaches, then I think like Seoul last year, I felt I don't know, they had like a coach per player or something, like something nutty, right? I'm exaggerating, but like then you're not unified enough. But if you have more, you need a certain amount though, for sure, to be able
Right.
to see things from multiple angles, have different perspectives. Each coach has a different philosophy, and there is sort of an ego battle in that, right, where you sort of have to
Right.
let the head coach do his thing and you assist him. But having those smart brains around definitely doesn't hurt at any point, unless
Right.
there's too many.
Well, and
Mhm.
like one thing that is like having more coaches is good, but getting the players to buy into the coaches. I was talking to a lot of coaches in Atlanta. I talked to a good 4 of them, and they definitely agreed that getting their players to listen to them is really hard. And for instance, like I don't know that this really correlates well, but like I watch the LA Valiant's content on YouTube. And I watch when they do their thing and the coach is talking to their players. And I've watched so many players messing with their phone while the coach is talking, and it just rubs me so wrong. Like, put your
But
phone
that's
down, dude. Like, your coach
Well,
is talking. Put your phone down and give him some respect or her. It's just like,
but
it's
that coach isn't demanding respect, right? At that point, like if I'm in a meeting with my staff and
maybe.
they pull out their phone, I'm like, nope, put it
Yeah, I
away, right?
mean,
Like I'll call you out and I will tell you, go put your phone in my office. You can have it back at the end of the day, right? Like there's
but not
I-
everybody who's smart about the game is an A personality that's going to take that alpha charge. They're trying to give help, but the players aren't listening, and
right,
I
but
think
that's I think
that's a big
leadership
problem.
versus talent, right? Like leadership is a completely different skill. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you can teach it, and even if you can teach it, it doesn't mean that you can be an effective leader. I think there's a lot more to
True.
leadership than just being able to teach a concept or being able to do a concept. And if you're not a leader, you need to develop those leadership skills.
Or just
And
make sure the head coach has those leadership skills and is able to
but the
push
head
the
coach
rest of the staff.
needs to be developing those in his staff, right? Because that's what's going to get them to the next level.
I guess you do
I
have a
know.
unique take on this because you do manage lots of people.
I think I went with Mel on this one. If you're going to be the coach for one of these franchises, then you have to tick all those boxes, right? You can't just be a good analyst. You can't be just somebody who understands the game at a deeper level. You have to be one sort of a manager. You have to have some people skills because you're going to be dealing with other players, other people that have their own egos. And just like Frida was saying, I think that there's a lot of that going in Overwatch League because for you to be there, you have to have proven yourself over and over that you are the best. And when you think that you're the best, it's hard to take advice from maybe somebody else who hasn't gotten to that pinnacle that you have.
And likely you
Even
got to be the best on your own,
Yeah,
right?
a lot of
Like
those
more
players
than
have practiced on
likely,
their own. Yeah,
yeah.
making their own decisions. I mean, and they've been coached before. Don't get me wrong. A lot of them are coming from teams that have had great coaches before in the past, and maybe that coach they have now is not at the level of the coach that they've had in the past, right? So there's also that dynamic going on, and so I don't know. I think that if you're going to be the coach for one of these teams, you have to be up for the task. And right now, we do have a lot of young people that are the coaches of some of these teams. Like some of the coaches are 20 years old, maybe 21 years old. So I think that there's room for growth there too, just like there's room for growth in the players and like the coaching stuff too.
Yeah.
I think some of the coaches do fit the leader archetype in terms of like maybe they coach StarCraft or another Blizzard game or whatever. Quite a few Korean ones, especially because they have a very developed
Right.
esports scene. I couldn't name any off the top of my head, but I do know these guys exist out there who are in the leadership position, but maybe don't even know that much about Overwatch, and they're more of the crack the whip, get everybody in line type of guy. Which full Korean teams, I hear, we're on the street, it's not much of a problem typically for them to band together and
Unless
be
you
very
have
respectful of their
Fisher.
elders. Yeah, Fisher's kind of an outlier. I
He's the outlaw.
I wonder if some of these guys, I feel the Western environment kind of brings that out of them, because I feel like I don't remember them acting that way when they were at home in Korea, right?
Yep.
But maybe that's just me. But
They're
yeah,
like, it's more acceptable here. Okay, I can
Right.
say what I want to say.
and they're asking me to say this actually. Like now, production's like, please, yeah, bring us the spice, and they're like, oh, I get to be a jerk now, man. I've waited my whole life to disobey my parents and live in the rock star life here, getting paid 6 figures to click heads. Like they can't wait to come out of their shell, which I'm happy to see.
Right, agreed.
Yep. Okay. Well, now we're going to move into the bulk of the conversation. We're going to hold 222 for a second, and we're going to talk about the home games next season. And Mel, I got to say, we were talking to Bare Hands in Atlanta, and us three were talking, and I was saying, I think next year is going to be home stands, and not half of your games are played at home. And I just think it's the smarter model. I think it's a good model, but I want to open up to the floor to you guys. What do you think about this new home stand model?
Okay, I don't know that it's a smarter model. Can we start there? Like, I think it's a smarter model for now, right? I
Yes,
think the transition
that's all that I ever
from
said.
LA to home games was going to be hard no matter what, right? But I also think, like we saw in Atlanta, you've got a lot of opening bands, right? that nobody shows up for. And there's a lot of travel. And so if you're playing a lot of these games with 30 people in the crowd, which is what we saw in Atlanta sometimes on the games that were in Atlanta, especially in the
I
fourth
don't
game.
think it was
in
ever
Atlanta.
30 people just in there.
Listen, the game after the Atlanta game.
Okay, yes. The Shanghai Dragons versus Guangzhou Charge, where Guangzhou actually upset Shanghai. It was
30
literally
people.
it was literally 30 people. Everybody had went home because for some reason they decided to put Atlanta's game as the third game instead of the fourth game. Whereas in Dallas, they had Dallas fourth both times.
From what I heard, that was the broadcast time. So, like, that's when it was live on ABC. And so they wanted the Atlanta game to be live on ABC, and that's a spot they had, right?
Gotcha.
So I can't confirm that. I don't know for sure, but that's what I've heard around the block. So I don't know. I think this is a good step forward, and this is a more manageable step forward. But I also think we need to take into account the fact that eventually we need to get to a point where not every single game, you can't watch every single game for every single team if you want to, unless you record it, right? Like, you don't watch every football game on Sunday. You watch your team's football game, and then maybe you watch another team if your team's not on, right? And you catch up with different recaps and things like that. But like, the amount of content that's going out there, I think, is just a lot. And I'm still not exactly sure how they're going to do it, because I think because they're going to broadcast in their time zones, right? So I don't know if we'll have like 2 homestand games broadcast on like a Saturday, because one's in
it'll be
Europe
really
and one's here.
interesting. I'm guessing like the two NA ones will be back to back. Would be my guess, but then I have no clue about the London division and then the Far East division. I'm not really sure, but one thing we should point out is that every team will have 2 home stands for sure. Some teams can have up to 5. Two teams I know already have secured 5 is Atlanta and Dallas. So I think there's one more that's confirmed it, but I can't
Washington,
remember.
I thought.
Washington, really? Wow.
Dun dun dun. Yeah, Washington. Yeah.
Listen, they need the home field advantage. They gotta,
Hey, just because you're not like the top team doesn't mean it's not lucrative to hold homestands in your city, especially if you think you're gonna sell the tickets.
Yeah,
We'll
and
see.
they
Yeah.
definitely have at least the watch party that I went to had a pretty strong following, but I don't know if
I
it
went
was
to a
stronger
lot
than
of Chiefs
Dallas
games
or
when they were sucky.
True, but like
Oh,
that's Chiefs though. Like you can't equate that to every NFL team. The Chiefs and the Bills, like those are teams that actually are small market teams that make a lot of money compared to the rest of the small market teams. Like lots of times you have NFL games not selling out when a team's not winning. But Fredo, what do you think?
yeah, I've got a whole lot of thoughts on this because there's concerns and there's like good points. So I think the league wants this regionalization thing to work and has to move towards it somehow and has to make sacrifices to do so. But my problem is that in order to do this, we're doing something like killing off stage playoffs, which to me had the best potential games of the year beyond the final playoffs. Now, they suck now because they don't really count. And it's like, do we really try? Don't we? Do they matter? Not really. Do they count? No, other than the history books. And so there's a bunch of problems with the stage playoffs. Right now, as well, with 7 games, the strength of schedule matters so much that they're kind of just illegitimate as well. So there's another problem. But to me, the tournament structure of a playoff is the best esports content there is. In fact, I'd go one step further. I want to see losers brackets and things like that because that's what I'm used to being an esports fan. I think we're losing that to try to emulate a old school sports model, which just doesn't really fit to me yet. Like I'm not fully convinced yet that that's the best route to go because we then don't get what you get with normal esports, which is matchups, more matchups of the better teams, right? That's what I want to see. I don't actually care about regional matchups necessarily. Like I get it and I want to have that and I think it's good for the people in those regions, but for the online viewer base, like we want to see better teams and interesting teams. Those are the two things. We want to see the best and interesting. Yes is like Washington and whoever their rival, I don't even know who Washington's rival is. Like 5 weeks out of the year, they're going to be the homestand leaders. I'm really trying to care about those games, and obviously everyone else is coming in to play there too. But my problem is there's so many mediocre scheduled games in the season as we have now, and we're robbing stage playoffs just to have that so we can fly around to play these games. There are going to be some epic homestands for sure, but I think the low point is going to be like below the average now somewhat because of how it all pans out. And for
You
example,
think the viewership? You're talking viewership will be lower?
oh, without a doubt, viewership's going to be lower because the times of some of these local places is just not going to fit with the West, and the West has more viewers. Now, granted, in China, this might be a big victory globally for the Overwatch League because now you'll have the Chinese circuit when they're there. This loose schedule was leaked by Yiska, an upcomer, so it's not set in stone, but they're pretty much doing like, okay, we're going to do a sweep in this region of the world, then we'll do this region of the world, right? So once we get to China or even in Europe, like the times are going to be kind of wacky. Luckily, it's on the weekend, right? So maybe you do want to stay up till 3 a.m. to see it in China or whatever time it's going to be. But you know, am I as a Western fan now supposed to just not watch those games? Because right, I know we've been spoiled in that we've had all the time slots. Okay, like Europe and China, they're like, okay, you guys catch up and figure it out, but we're gonna do it for the West. My worry is that like the Twitch audience is in the West, not all these other places. So we're moving the time of when we play the games there. I think the this is what we mentioned. We talked about this last time I was on the show. When I was worried about this, I'm like, are they going to have multiple broadcasts? That sounds like a logistical nightmare. So obviously, I think homestands is the right middle ground between that. But I was going to say NYXL plays Vancouver once this year and next in the regular season, and this year they play them last game of the season, and that maybe that's like one of the best matches. And because we don't have any playoffs in between here, we don't get to see some of these top tier teams play. Now, theoretically, you would say that's fine because regional matchups are so more important. But I think in esports, it's different. I think there's way more fans that just want to watch good Overwatch rather than just online. Anyway, when you're online, that's what you care about. When you're regional, then you care about your local team and you go. So I don't know how this is going to pan out. I'm not an expert in this field. So maybe this is the best way to go and it's going to be super successful and it's great. But as far as online is concerned, as far as the esports thing, I think we're like sacrificing multiple esports standard practices that have been proven to work for years across many different games.
Well,
I
at
agree,
the
but
hold on though, but at the same time though, Twitch for the Chinese broadcasts, Twitch doesn't even get aired in China.
Right. They have a different site.
Yeah, they did a different site, and so I like if that's big, then does it really matter? Like you're like basically what Overwatch League has brought about is the regionalization and pride for your team and not necessarily the players on your team. And like you stick with that team regardless, like traditional sports. So will they even care to watch the Chinese teams play?
Well, here's my question. Do we see the viewer base fluctuate on Overwatch League based on teams? Or is it like largely in the same window of, like, you know what I mean? 10 to 20,000 maybe drop off as the day goes on. But I don't think it's like, all right, Houston's on, most popular team or whatever, 200,000, and then it drops down. Okay, West doesn't care about China. To me, I think there's like Overwatch League viewers in one bucket online and just an average seems to pan out. Like I don't see wide
Right.
fluctuations is what I'm trying to say. Online, obviously.
I agree. But I think the biggest difference that I see is that online viewers are free viewers, right? And yes, it's great, just like TV viewers are free viewers, right? It's great to say like, yes, we're very popular, we have a lot of people watching us, but at the same time, the teams aren't making money from that. And so to give the teams to pay for their investment, they're holding homestands, which people are coming to, which will obviously decrease the overall viewership because there's more people at the stadium, ideally, than were before. And now the teams are making their profit and their money sustaining the league for ideally longer than it is, right? It could be without it, right?
True.
Yeah. All right. Sorry,
True.
guys. We're having a little bit of a snafu with the podcast. Andres, I Play Games, had to go. Some medical emergency with his girlfriend's mother. Everybody, please wish them well and wish them luck. Sorry to bring a kind of a downward thing to the podcast, but let's move on. Sorry, you guys. Do you have anything else that you wanted to talk about with the homestand games?
Yeah, I'm on board with the trip to go down this route. I'm just concerned that it's not all in enough, or we're losing some things. Like I didn't expect stage playoffs to die entirely. I should have seen it coming, I guess. But those are just some concerns I have. I think largely it will still be a success, but the Play Overwatch likes to, or the Overwatch League rather, they really kind of brag about their Twitch viewership and stuff. And if that goes down, then what? Like, do you just act like it doesn't matter? Well, it mattered last year. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just
How
concerned.
do you sell it to new sponsors, right? Like,
Kind of
what's the
depends, though. So, like, Twitch, that big multi-million-dollar Twitch deal ends this year. So if they get Twitch to sign another one, well, they don't have to worry about it for a year or two. You know what I mean?
True. I got this stuff feels like so above my pay grade. I feel like just the villager on the street with my little sign.
sign?
You know what I mean? Like I want quality games. Like that's all I care about. But they're making big deals over here, and yeah, I just want to see better scheduled matches more often, and stage playoffs did that. Like I feel like if I still had if they restructured the schedule, if they had less games in the season and or two playoffs, like Contenders has 2 seasons in a year, right? Like
Right.
that's fine too. I just want more opportunities for playoffs. That's it. And rather than maybe this is fine. Maybe I'm just overreacting, and we're gonna have only 2 days of matches, Saturday and Sunday. Maybe it'll be really easy to follow, and this will just be like because there's too much Overwatch League on right now. Let's just be honest, right? Like 4
Yes.
days.
It
of
literally
it's too much.
occupies the majority of my week.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So this will be way easier to follow, and maybe some days you can't watch because it's just not in your time scale. Maybe that's fine, and then we sort of drift through the season, get to the playoffs, and then I'm happy again, and that's what I want, right? I just think with the way the game evolves over a year with new heroes and patches, I kind of like I loved the Shanghai Dragons. Some patches ago were to goats, and it sort of benefited them later. Like the Diva nerfs were 2 patches ago, fine, but they finally now far is actually looking good, and I want to be able to see it. We weren't going to see next year if the Dragons were in the same exact position. It's not like we were going to get to see them play New York, Vancouver, and Shock in that order. Like
Exactly.
it just wouldn't happen in the middle of the year. Like that's amazing that we got that. And I just want more of those storylines to be able to develop based on the schedule.
I'm completely with you. Like, I thought so many people say the stage playoffs don't matter. They're exhibition matches, yada yada yada. Teams don't care. I think that is complete bullshit. They are some of the best games we have seen throughout the Overwatch League, and you used to get 4 of them. Now you get 3 of them, but like you get this exciting tournament in the middle of it, and it is a really good thing. I mean, I, for instance, on this podcast, see an uptick of downloads at the start of every stage because every team is back in it. Like Dallas was out of it last year starting stage 4, but they had one of the most exciting stage 4s that you could have, and it kept Dallas fans happy. And you're not going to have that now, and it is kind of a bummer. I am hoping that they do the mid-season tournament. So, like the All-Star
They said
game.
They're going to do an All-Star game in mid-season, and I think they're changing it a little bit. But I guess you guys have to look at this like they tried to make Overwatch League appeal to the casual fans, not just the hardcore esports fans, right? And the hardcore esports fans, yes, they want to see those best matches. They want to see the tournaments. They want to see X, Y, and Z, right? But the casual fans can lock onto a region, not know much about it, and support it, right? So you're trading in this kind of like, not small, but smaller niche of esports hardcore fans for this like really large potential of esports casual fans that could potentially become esports hardcore fans, right? And then where could we take this, right? But right now, I think esports, especially in NA, is emerging, right? Like, yes, it's there and we've got things and there's definitely people that love it, but it's the minority, not really the majority of people, right? And I know it's getting larger, but I think this can kind of help bridge that gap. And then maybe we try something a little bit closer to what, compromising between the two.
Yeah, going with the niche esports crowd isn't what the Overwatch League set out to do. Nate Nancer set out to take over the people that don't even play Overwatch, just like the people that don't play football that watch the NFL every week. Like that was his goal.
You guys are completely right. These are very sound arguments. I think Monty suggested though that like stage playoffs could have like a point system or something like that for the season, and maybe you work towards points. And I think he said also as well the way League of Legends does it. I don't really know, but early splits in League have the wins are worth less because the game changes over time. Like that, I would like to see that eventually. But short of that, then sure, if we're gonna like take on the big 3 or 4 main sports leagues in America or even across the world, if this works, I will be right there applauding, very, very happy. But I think I just am too connected to that hardcore scene to see past it. But also, I will say, I think it's not necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily agree that local fans necessarily are like larger in number, but they're definitely worth more because they physically come to a venue, so you can get local sponsors and they physically buy things, right? So like
$12 beers.
Yeah. So, well, hopefully the economics of that all pans out. But again, you talk about like esports viewership. The major for CS:GO last year got like 1 million concurrent when NA was in it. So, like, the gaming's pretty big, So
it is right,
definitely.
and it's getting bigger every day, right? But I do think there is this kind of gap, and I think it's a lot of why you see a lot less females in Overwatch or esports, and I think it's because of the kind of stereotype, I guess you could say,
The sweaty net
of
nerds like myself.
yes, like Freedo. But no, I just think it's
Actually, I thought the ladies would come to see this.
But I think
I
it's
make
hear- I
this
hear you.
look
You're right.
good.
right, but I think it's more about us like growing up and that not being like it's just like football wasn't an option for me growing up, right? Like video games wasn't really either, even though, my guy friends all played it and it just didn't seem like something that I should do or could do. I don't know. And that sounds silly, right? Like it sounds like you're a dumb girl, but it's just the way that society formed it, at least here in North America. I don't know what it's like elsewhere, but I'm also not talented enough to be an esports star, but who knows? Maybe if I would have tried earlier,
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
right up there.
Yeah, hopefully the whole family can get into it. Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, like if I think to like an NFL broadcast though, the beauty of that is that it does feel kind of hardcore to me when I watch
Mhm.
NFL. Like I know some people, make fun of the classic John Madden, very obnoxiously
Well, what
obvious
they need to
call,
do here, Frito, is they need to score.
score a touchdown. You put points on the board, you win the game. Like, like whatever, right? But there's casting that makes me feel invested in it, and I think Overwatch League's just everything they do, I guess, sort of irks me in that way where it's just so casual that I'm like, give me the juice, give me the give me the dense stuff where I
Right.
can really get into it. So maybe we're like 10 years away from that, and I just have to wait. So hopefully the strategy works to do that.
But I mean, I even got into football and I didn't know anything about football and I was able to listen to the casting,
I know.
right? Like
Yeah,
my
but it
wife
got
does
more
too. Like
than
she started yelling at the screen when we watch football more than me. Like anyway, go ahead.
yeah.
but it got more enjoyable like when we did our Madden League and you really understood the differences between the 4-3 and the 3-4 defense. Like football
Right.
got that much more exciting because you understood it. So I think we all we just have to give it up to the casters because they have a hard job coming towards them. It'll be a little easier with 2-2-2 coming in, but let's just go ahead and use that as a transition. Let's talk about 2-2-2 and roll lock. Hallelujah! Oh my God, we've
We
been
did
asking
it.
for it forever.
Frito did it. Frito did it, guys.
Freedo.
Give him a
I
round of
invented
applause.
it. I developed it. You're welcome.
Yeah.
I take all the credit. I've
As
spoke
long
about
as
it.
nothing goes wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, to my recollection, you were the first big YouTuber to really push for it, and when you first pushed it, I did not agree. It took some time, took a lot of different people's opinions to sway my own opinion, but I was definitely on board somewhere around like week 2 or 3 of season 2, and we have it now. And I mean, I don't even know where to start. Like, do we start with let's just go ahead and jump in and start with what it's going to do to the actual game aside from Overwatch League. So I've been
Okay.
playing a ton of PTR. I've placed a few different accounts. It's pretty interesting because I've got different accounts and different SRs. But for instance, like my gold, like my lowest gold, like 2200s DPS account that I try to play Genji on and different things. I placed it on the PTR, and I placed like 2885. So it jumped me up a good 700 SR playing tank. But then when I placed DPS, I placed right back at 2200s. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But what have you seen so far messing around in the PTR?
Okay, a whole lot of things. One, be a little careful with the MMR because the it's wacky. Jeff even kind of said that, but you're probably fairly accurately rated based on like the gap between your heroes. But there's some wackery going on with how hard it's boosting people up or down. There's definitely some negatives I could speak about, but I think as I had hoped and dreamed, the benefits outweigh most negatives that you could come up with, in that the game is much more straightforward and accessible and simple. Now, those words to some people um, make them worried because they think they're losing something like creativity or whatever. I think a lot of those arguments are kind of baloney to me, because really, I think the biggest thing you're losing is unreliable games, right? You could be like, well, we could creatively have 6 damage on a team and before, and it's like, who really wanted that, right? I think it's much more straightforward to be able to get a grip on the game. So there's some credible concerns people have. Like, okay, the way I used to play ranked was I would see the map and it's, let's say it's Nepal, and I'm like, oh, I can play soldier here. I'll play damage, hit soldier, it works out. Oh, we're playing Nepal. There's a Sanctum. I could boot people off. I'll play Lucio. In like one game, I'm a DPS. One game, I'm a support, and whatever. Go on and on for your individual preference and hero pool. But the problem that doing that does, or let's say
Is that
another
everybody
example,
does it?
is that, yeah, and so like no one's really getting locked down to a role or a play style, or having to, you got to ask yourself, why don't you play damage on Nepal? Like, is it because you should be learning Tracer, but you're bad at it? So instead you play Lucio to cover that gap, right? So I fear going into like example inception here, where I just like give way too many examples. But Deathblow had a good example on the podcast earlier, where he said like he's got a friend who in this system is playing support, filling in, and there's a Pharah in the air. It's like a classic plat example, right? And the Pharah is wrecking you, but he's our best Widow, but he can't go to Widow because he's on support. And I'm like, that feels bad in the short term, which I understand. It's there's gonna be growing pains
But
here, and it's gonna hurt for a lot of
it
people. But
should.
the point is, it should hurt, and you're accurately rated. Like, you need to learn how to
Yeah.
deal with this problem on that role. That's the point I want to make. So
Yeah,
you can go.
and that friend he was talking about is Yankee, plays regularly in our six stack group, and yeah, we shouldn't be carried by that, because he could just be like, oh, we'll just go with the solo heal Mercy. I'll switch to Widow. I'll take care of that problem. We just push through. We shouldn't have, we shouldn't have that. That just brings too much carry potential to one person, and that's what's
I
been
quite enjoy
great.
that.
Yankee, like Yankee
As the
has
Mercy player.
like
Yeah, right?
but
It makes
he's
my life much easier, just so you know.
but I mean he has said like he really likes it because it makes him try and think of a way to combat the situation within his role, which is now we never have to worry about the roles switching so much. We don't have to worry about our Ryan going to Reaper
Reaper.
after the first match, but
Pulling
we
a bumper?
do
Shanghai
Who
made
did
that work.
It's Dragons, yeah.
Youngjin.
Youngjin did that, yeah.
we do have to worry about him switching to Hog because the Hog's killing us, and like he switches to Hog, but it's still a better situation than we were in before. It's not perfect, of course, but better.
Yeah, everybody's been in those moments where it's like, wait, we had 2 tanks and now we have 4 DPS. What just happened? And the 2 people that switched to DPS are like, well, our DPS aren't doing anything. Like it gets to that point. But I guess my bigger take on it would be it's going to allow you to, like Freedo was saying, not just play your comfort heroes because you can make that work on that map, right? Like not switch to Lucio because you can make that work, as opposed to learning somebody else within your class. And maybe it'll punish some of these like DPS only players that get their SR up playing Zen and then decide like, hey, I think I want to play Widow. And I
Yeah.
think that's hard, right? But in another aspect, it's like, okay, if I get up to a level with playing Mercy mostly, right? Then if I get there and somebody else picks Mercy, I'm an extreme detriment to my team if I have to play a tank or a DPS.
True. This change makes it so that if you want to play tank, you need to know 3 or 4 tanks, preferably a couple main tanks, a couple off tanks. Something I found interesting as heck is I placed my main, who I haven't placed in a couple seasons. He was like high diamond the last time I placed him. I placed him tank, mid diamond. I got placed. Then I placed support. And my inability to flex on support, I think really hurt me because I placed 2458 or something like that, like right at the top of gold. And then we did DPS and I was like, this is going to be bad. But I placed almost diamond DPS. Like I placed 28 something. And I thought that was interesting, and I think the reason I was able to do better on DPS is because I had the ability to flex within the role based on the other team's comp. Whereas with support, with Mel always playing support and us always playing together, I've just never bothered to learn anything besides Lucio or Zenyatta. And so I have no flex room at all to do anything, and so therefore I placed, But with this new system, I can learn in comp a lot easier.
Right.
Can we just clarify that I'm not a Mercy one trick?
No, that's why I didn't learn Anna either, because you play a
I
lot of
didn't
Anna.
call you one. I just knew you were playing Mercy. You said it the other day.
Just
Okay,
saying.
fair enough. Yeah, I hope that everyone's down for that learning process because one of the biggest I asked on Twitter for like people's best arguments for against 222, and we actually got hundreds of replies. I was really shocked. It was like the most replies we've ever had, like 300 or more on Twitter, which is a lot for us. But so I sifted through a lot of those to try to get what the strongest ones were. The example I gave earlier was one. Another one that made me laugh, which I didn't even think people would say, but they're like, well, now I can't complain that my team's throwing because they picked bad heroes at the start, which you still can do somewhat. Okay, fine. Like, not having a main heal or not having a main tank is probably weak, but it's not like you don't have tanks or you don't have heals, right?
Right.
You're playing actual Overwatch a higher, just almost all the time, pretty much. Like there's so many trash games in ranked normally that like it's going to feel like a whole new world where you're actually going to be tested, and you'll have, it might be asking too much of the player base. Like we could sit here in a call and be like, yeah, I probably need to learn other supports. Like it's probably on me that I only know Lucy, and I'm with you too. Like I've played like a serviceable Ana. Like my ability usage is good because like that's where my skill set is. But being able to hit a lot of shots, that's the weird thing about supports as opposed to damage, by the way. Like a lot of damage are like contextual skill shots. Like you go take this duel or whatever. Like Ana and Zen, you're in the back and you're just a turret. Like you just need to hit a ton of shots, right? You can't miss. Whereas damage oftentimes is like impact shots, or you get a flank, or you go take a duel. So you definitely have to aim, obviously, but it's a totally different play style.
Not as frequently. The rate is a little bit lower sometimes.
Right. So that's why a lot of times those support picks are harder than damage, is the point I was trying to get to. But the weird thing is in ranked, there used to be these picks that you could just sort of soar on because they had so much power to fix team comps, right? In the matchmaking chaos, like Ana's one of them. If you got all these damage, and as long as somebody picks Ana and plays it okay, like all of a sudden your team comp's better than it otherwise would be, right? Same thing if you learn Orisa right now, or Wrecking Ball's pretty good.
Same with Hanzo at the moment.
Luckily, Hanzo's one of the best damage. Like if you need a damage, just fire them down the pike, baby, and you'll probably kill something. Even if you don't know how to aim very well. My point is, those tricks of like manipulating the comp and whatever, a little less relevant now because everyone's gonna have 222 all the time. Right. So you're gonna be forced to play the game more, and I hope we all like that. That's all. I'm just trying to warn people. Like you're gonna be like, man, I can't just swap to Widow to kill this far. Like how do I deal with this as tank? A lot of people are gonna get mad, but personally, for me anyway, I felt it like freeing and liberating. Where I'm like, and I hope everyone's psychology works like this. I know I can't tell that person to swap roles. I know they queued at the right ranking for their role.
Right.
Supposedly. PTR is a little wonky, but whatever. So I don't even think about that. I'm thinking like, am I on the right pick? Like, am I doing the right thing? What do I got to do? Like, that's at least where my mind goes. And if the whole community does that, we're in the we're
golden
gonna
era.
Not believe that we lived without this feature is what I'm trying to say. It's gonna be the best thing.
Yep.
Right.
So
yeah, and
I think my favorite point about that comment that your like reply was though that he's like, well, I can't blame somebody else for when we
Yeah.
fail, right? Like that was like pretty
Yeah.
much the gist of it. It was like, well, what's my excuse now? Like, come on, it can't be me, obviously.
Well, and I've definitely I definitely felt more relaxed playing on the PTR because I just have a certain area to pick in, and I have to pick, based on my role. And it's been oddly freeing to just like bring my anxiety down because I don't have a million things that I could think about. Like, oh, could I go a triple support here and help them out? Oh, could I switch over to this? No, you just don't have that. One thing I do worry about this system, especially in the lower SRs, is the support bracket. You see a lot of supports really just getting tunnel visioned on doing damage, and there's not really a way to change that with the way that Overwatch is built. Like, support players can do a lot of damage, so they're going to try to do that, but hopefully going forward, supports prioritize supporting.
Oh, and to knock you down your ivory tower here, the the thing that I noticed as well is that, like, at least on the PTR right now, and I'm not sure why this is or exactly. I think I have some evidence to back this up, but it seems like tank players are getting boosted quite hard because you got to think as well in this system. We have to remember where it's different from the old system. The old system was you're all at a skill rating, you're queuing up together, and it tries to split the roles a little bit, but more or less it's just a group of players near the same skill rating. You guys figure it out. And Jeff Kaplan, I think on Siegel's stream, made a joke why this is bad is that you couldn't get 6 random people in a room to agree where to go to dinner, much less like what roles are going to play. So
Right.
yes, you're right, Jeff. Thanks for saying that 3 years later. Yes, completely true. But the benefit of that is that win or lose, that group of 6 players had to figure out whatever roles they decided to pick. Like they can choose, I'm not going to play tank no matter what. So because of that, especially at like GM and stuff, you'll get games where there's no tanks and it's just a bunch of DPS that are really sick mechanically and they're popping off and killing each other. And it's like, oh, this is just ranked and it's matchmaking, whatever, it's fine. But conversely, onto the PTR now, you guaranteed have 2 tanks. Okay. The game ain't starting until two tanks come into the queue. And because of that, you're rating players, and it's like a bottleneck, right? Or if I'm saying that right, I think so. Like the rest of the people can't rank up until you get these tank players. And if the tank player pool is smaller, it means it's going to get spread out to match to get into those games, right? Like they got to go somewhere. If the only person queuing is a gold and you're in masters, like, you know what I mean? They're going to get pulled up towards where you are. So at least right now in the PTR, it's like there's a lot of silver tanks that are in masters randomly on rank. And I hope they sort this out when it comes to live.
Yeah.
This is sort of a
Freedo,
troublesome thing, but
maybe
if
they
players don't
are,
play tank, they'll be boosted, is what I'm trying to say.
Maybe they are masters tanks though.
No way.
Okay,
No, they
so,
suck. They're
for
really bad, is my
instance-
point. Their playstyle's bad.
Well, but I mean, maybe they don't know how to play there. But what I'm saying is, I don't know that I could one trick tank from silver up to masters. Like, I don't know that I could do that. But I can tell you that I went solo queue from 3100 to masters easy, almost winning every game in season 12 and 13, because it got easier to play Rhine. Because all of a sudden, I got healed. All of a sudden, everybody was behind me. All of a sudden, people used my shield. All of a sudden, everything got better. And I mean, I literally just flew up from diamond. And tank, like, your tank is only as good as its support and actually damage too. Like, it's such a team game. And in silver, playing Reinhardt is just a joke. You're not going to get healed at all. It's just a like, if you want to do anything, you're going to need to go ball or monkey so you can actually just control your own health pool. But I will say, like, some of those players that were lower might be leveling up, and they just have a whole new learning curve to go through once at that level.
Yeah, but I don't think there's any way a silver player could actually be a masters player. I think there's a potential that a silver tank could be a plat tank, but
Yeah.
I think going that jump, there's so much
Yeah,
game sense that
I
they
guess
don't
I
have.
never drop below plat like
I'm just
with
saying there's so
tank.
much game sense that they don't have about how the game works because their game doesn't work that way.
Yeah, because
Silver,
it's a
right?
different game at every
Yeah.
every SR level.
But I guess I don't know. My biggest thing, I'm super excited. I think it'll be great. I have not done my placements, so you can't ask me what my SR is because I was in Florida. But
5K.
yeah, it
Max.
was I think it was like off the charts. It just couldn't even
Mercy
like
me, by the
register.
way.
We're just like, whoa, what the heck? You're just so good. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think ideally it just gives you a better experience and you don't have to buy 12 accounts to play different classes and you can see what your ranking is on all of the characters. But did it I don't know if I saw this, but did it come with like a soft SR reset?
Yes, which is part of what I'm talking about. And Jeff explained this in the Siegel interview. It's not a full SR reset. Like they've been tracking your stats on these different heroes from the past few months, apparently. So it's kind of tied to your account. And that I think the tuning on it's not exactly right yet. But as long as they figure that out, then
Mhm.
yeah, I am on board. But I think the reason why I'm so vehemently say this is that I've asked these players like what your masters now, what rank are you normally? It's like, oh yeah, I'm silver, I'm gold, or even in my own placements, there's a massive bug flying around. That's why I keep looking around. Sorry, I gotta go get the zapper for that. Even my own placements, like I'd have an account that its old SR was at like 3.5K. It was like an alt account. And granted, I am actually in GM normally, but like I placed that on tank at like 4.2 or higher even. Like it got higher than my
You're
main
like,
SR. Like the
come
scale,
on.
yeah, the PTR scale is just like a little bit too boosty right now.
Yeah.
So I don't take it too seriously. My hope is just that like these player pool problems change because we also on the PTR have a lot of players that are like, I'm gonna try damage today, and like they got to play somewhere, like
Right.
it's gonna guess where
And
you're
there's
at.
not
Been
as many.
interesting. It's been really interesting.
Right. So it's
And
a
there's
bit
not
up
as
and
many
down.
people on the PTR, right?
Correct.
Like I mean probably more right now than there ever has been on the PTR because it's 222. But there's still not the same population playing PTR that's playing competitive. So you have a smaller pool and I think I, I don't know though, do you think that it will expand the gap of how far SRs can be? Or do you think queue times will just increase if you can't find a tank at your SR, right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, you'd think that. Well, the thing is, I think there's a lot of players playing tank that haven't played before as well. Like that are like, well, I might as well pick up tank now because like the queue times are better
Hmm.
again, like the problem is with this system, it kind of goes into our first point that we're talking about where you actually do got to learn that role. Okay. Like
Hmm.
I think a lot of times in rank people are get away with filling as Ryan, not really knowing what they're doing, but at least we got a
Oh
shield
yeah.
and sort of contributing, whatever. Like that's going to be way harder to do because the guy on the other side is less likely to also be doing that. Okay.
Right.
They're more likely to have been, I'm learning tank, I'm a tank player, I'm queuing as tank. Okay. Whereas there's so many games, I can't like stress this enough. There's so many games where either neither team has a comp or both teams are compromising to fill. So it's like
Right.
whoever's filling kind of better, and it's just so wacky that it's hard to even call it accurate. Like it's accurate for what it is. I always call ranked matchmaking like a bar fight or something. Like there's still clear winners and losers, but there's a lot of BS going on. It's not
Right.
like boxing. Okay, it's sloppier than that.
Wasn't quite
Um,
legit.
yeah. So anyway, that's my spiel. I think I
Yeah.
answered the question.
Yeah, I think all in all, though, it's just going to make the game a better place, an easier place, especially for new players. Just an easier place to come and try out. And I'm just excited to have three SRs for my account because now, judging from how I was placed on the PTR, I'm going to be able to play with everybody, which is going to be cool.
It's just
never
fun.
again will I get into a game where 2 people lock support and I'm like, sorry guys. Okay. Well, this is
Yeah.
gonna be rough, but sorry. Like, like I'm not gonna play like okay, well, in the last few months, yes, I would have played a third sport. But before that, before goats, it was like, well, okay, I guess I'll pick up Diva, like and it just wasn't healthy, right? Like now at least I know I'm gonna play a support. If I can get solid in those supports, I can be successful, right?
Yep.
Whereas before it was like, what are you gonna do? Get solid in every single character in Overwatch? That's not possible.
Exactly.
If I queued on my main and I didn't get to play tank, all of a sudden you went from a mid diamond player to a high gold player in support. And that was the biggest problem with the old model, in my opinion.
I love that we can call it the old model now, right? Like
I know, like the Wild West, like I haven't even played live because why?
Yeah, me too. It's sort of like, I don't know if you guys even know, there was a thing called the Articles of Federation before the U.S. Constitution. It's like that. It's like no one ever taught. Kids, I don't even know if they get taught it in school. Like there was that. We tried a government, and we're like, yeah, just redo it. You know what I mean? And now we've been on the Constitution this whole time, and people act like it's gospel, or in some ways it is. I think that's the sea change I think we're doing. It's just fun.
Right.
It's the game's more fun in 222.
Mhm.
You have all the pieces. You more easily feel like you can flex to different characters in that role because of the game's just being simplified. It's fun to have multiple SRs. It's more freeing and liberating. You feel like you can just like jump in and play, and like because like you're saying, Bob, if I played on my main on live, I want to play tank. The weird thing on NA, at least
You have to play Anna all the time. I watch all your videos. I know.
Well, there's so many damn tanks though. Like so many people play tank, and maybe I might need to play Widow or something. Like it's like I don't want to have to warm up Widow to play on my tank account. Like it just doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like, but if you want to win, like sometimes you just need a Widow. But
Right.
I don't want that to be my problem. If I'm trying to play tank, like I want that to be the damage's problem.
I can't tell you how many times I was so uncomfortable when I was forced into playing damage on my master's account. I was like pleading with the lobby, guys, I really can't play damage not even close to this level, please. And they're like, no, you're fine. We'll be fine. I'm like, okay. As I get sniped by Widow every time I walk out of spawn, like it's just horrible.
Yeah.
Well, I guess so. We've talked about like what it does for us, but what about like it makes me feel better going into a queue knowing that I'm gonna get to play support, right? It's gotta make Overwatch League players feel more confident that they only have to learn a certain subset of heroes, right? Like they don't
definitely.
have to learn every single hero just in case they have to flex to it. And I think that it does.
Whereas
They mentioned it in the
Brig
watch
came
point.
in, and all the supports we talked to last season when Brig was coming out were super excited about playing Brig. Guess what? They didn't get to. They put the
Same with
DPS
Zarya,
on him.
right? Like we saw Spree and Geggery, who were 2 master Zaryas before Goats, and neither of them played or were successful in playing, right? It was a different meta, and they had DPS playing Zarya. And so I think that this just gives more security and more longevity, like they were saying on Watchpoint. Like it gives them that freedom to be like, I am a DPS player, I can play these heroes, right? Like, and that not be a negative thing as to somebody that's like, I could play Anna and Zen or Wrecking Ball and Rhine or
like that
Widow.
dude on the ladder once that was like, I could play Mercy and McCree.
Oh, no. This is a legit story. And I was like, okay, you should probably play Mercy then. Because if you say you could play Mercy and McCree, I feel like your McCree is probably not that great. And he went Mercy. And I was like,
It was horrible.
okay, let's see your McCree. And he popped, and he literally
popped off,
on
literally
McCree,
carried
and
the game.
I was like, you can play McCree. Okay, so next time you go into a lobby, you can play McCree.
Well, this is funny because people really don't know how good they are at different heroes, right? That's the crazy thing. That's what's great about this role system where
Right.
You know, can you win or not? Like, just do it and prove it, right? People think they are really good at flexing, but usually they're not. Usually they're really bad.
Usually
Dude,
they're
I
not.
I thought support was my second best role, but I've completed 2 accounts now, and it turns out DPS is my second best role, which is weird. I did not expect that.
I do think it gives people that realization though too, right? Like Freedo was saying, it's like, oh, okay, now I can judge myself on different classes as opposed to, well, I'm still at Diamond and I got, carried a couple games on Widow, so I think I'm a rock star Widow, right? Like people are delusional sometimes and they can't like self-evaluate very well. So
It's very hard, honestly, to evaluate yourself accurately in the game because there's so much going on, and the,
yeah,
the game does a lot to make you feel good about the plays you do make and like ignore the plays you don't make, you know, or you
right.
don't
Yeah.
even know that you screwed over your teammate half the time, even though you
Yeah.
did, you know.
Yeah. It's like Bob who never hears me when I call for help, right?
Exactly.
Hey,
It's his
He's
that
holding you back.
was a season 1 through 4 problem. I corrected that. Come on.
The cool thing I think it does with the league as well is like treat each role as like positions in a regular
Right.
sport. That's what I like. You know, it's like this is my position, and me as a learning player can look to a pro player, and it
Mhm.
translates. We're playing the same game. None of this. I went on a very epic goats rant in the previous podcast, so I don't necessarily have to go on it again, but I really hate goats, and I think it's terrible for the game. I think it's just absolutely horrific for the game. No one would have bought Overwatch if it's sold and launched as like this is a fake MOBA game with no shooting elements at all. It's just get out of here. And
Well,
anyway,
they're shooters. You just can't play them. They're just not very good.
yeah, even worse. It's the what a
There's
tease.
the
is that
taunting
is.
over here, but
Yeah.
yeah.
These really hyped characters, Genji and Tracer on the bench all the time. Can't pick them actually. In fact, you instantly lose if you try to play them. That doesn't make sense, right? And so
Throwing.
now the game. I was saying this kind of earlier. Some people, and I think like I've spoken to Skyline a few times. Met him at BlizzCon. I hope I get to see him again. He's against 222 currently. I hope he comes around. But his argument is that that it does limit some of the craziness of it, I guess. Like I'm oversimplifying his argument, but like the allure of being able to switch and all the complexity of the game, like he values that. And they are flattening the game. I definitely agree with that. But I just think the game's complicated enough that
See, I
inside
think
the damage rule, it's still crazy enough.
Skyline just needs to understand that his brain is twice as large as the average person. We haven't had Skyline
don't
on
think his
this
brain is
show,
twice
but
as large.
I have had him on other shows, and the guy is just brilliant, and most people aren't. So let's make the game good for the majority of people rather than the skylines of the world. You know what I mean?
Well,
Even you, Freedo, your brain is like this. Like,
I don't think your head's that
make
big.
it
I think
for.
you just use more of your brain. Don't worry about it.
But let's
Don't
talk about 222 in Overwatch League.
I tried to segue us there earlier, but we kind of got backtracked again. Just saying.
Yeah, well, from this point on, we're talking Overwatch League, period. 222. Role lock. The way I understand it is any player, whether they are a DPS, a support, or a tank, can play any role as long as specified to the league before the match. They cannot change off of that role after the match starts. So
Or
you
just
still
map.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So you could see Sinatra play DPS on one map and play Zarya on another if that were the case. So that is something you can see, but they cannot switch during. Like Sinatra can't switch for a support, yada, yada, yada. So that's the way that they're setting it up. Who's the biggest winners in this 222 change?
Teams or players?
Teams.
Well, these questions are always difficult for me because it depends. Everything's relative, right? So some teams might be more comfortable, but they're not going to playoffs or something. So like, are they really in the conversation? So I think an answer from like the top perspective is I think NYXL kind of wins in the shuffle between the three. So this is sort of a who
You
loses
think
and wins,
you
in
think
my opinion.
NYXL's better than London?
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
I would definitely say that.
I think they're more stable than London. Like London has the opportunity to pop off in like a streak and go on a hot streak for sure. But I think we're going to see some really stable play out of the NYXL moving forward. By the way, shout out NYXL's YouTube channel. I made a video on there talking about will they be the best 2-2-2 team. So if anybody watching would like to go and leave a nice comment on there, I would appreciate it. It goes a long way for me. That's my
Which
sellout section.
actually
Play a little
I
musical
did
jingle
watch
here.
that.
actually confused the heck out of me, Fredo, because I saw your tweet and then I went to my Xbox and tried to pull up Your Overwatch. I was like, why is it not coming up? And I kept killing the app, bringing it back up. I'm like, all
I
right,
did the same thing
check.
actually.
I checked
Sorry.
I checked back at the tweet and I was like, oh, NYXL. So you got me to follow NYXL's YouTube, which was cool. And they have a
Nice.
lot of really good content there too. So I've actually enjoyed a few of their backlog because of it. So thank you for that.
They
Right.
do have good content. Their origin stories are really good.
They are. They're definitely good. And also, I mean, the players are just awesome people anyway, so
For
they're
sure.
interesting naturally. But yeah, they do a good job as well. So anyway, my point is, in terms of like impactful, I'm thinking postseason really to me because I don't know if stage
Mhm.
4 matters really.
For sure.
That's why I think postseason matters. Where I think Widow's going to be incredibly strong for the playoffs. It might not matter in the stage so much because the strength of the schedules are all over the place that they kind of are irrelevant. But once you get to those playoffs, I think you need a top tier, I can duel anybody type Widow, and NYXL have like 2 or 3 like that I would say or could get the job done, as well as other DPS and their tanks are. I did a whole video on this, so I won't rehash the whole thing, but I think they look strong in 2-2-2, and the dominance that we've come to expect out of San Francisco Shock and Vancouver is going to detract a bit for many reasons. Like Sinatra, for example, you had the best Zarya over here. Sumin Su maybe was number 2. So you got these are 2 players that I think aren't that high up in ranking on normal damage, but were on Zarya. Automatically, you got to go down. I also don't think either team has an elite Widowmaker player. A lot of people got mad at me for saying this about the San Francisco Shock. They think Architect's really good. There's rumors that Striker's been grinding Widow in the offseason this entire time. Didn't really come out against the Dragons, in my opinion. And in fact, that was one of the major reasons I picked the Dragons to beat both Vancouver and the Shock, and it happened. So when Striker starts popping off on stage, then I'll be a believer. But I think Stitch and Striker, they're not really specialized for Widow. If it was a dive meta, and those both teams play Genji Tracer, both those teams are sick. I just think Widow matters more. So that's where I could be wrong. Their flexibility and width and the wide, the rosters are wide in skill.
Mhm.
Whereas I think like some other like NYXL have very tall players like Pine's like Widow McCree, and that's about it, right? But he's insane on those picks. So and I think that's what you need in Overwatch League. Whereas they've got Rascal and Architect and Striker and Sinatra. It's
Right.
we really just need a Widow, right? Like one of
Right.
you play Widow. I know you all can play all these other heroes, but
We don't need 4 tracers. We just need
right, we
one
don't need
Widow.
4
Come
tracers.
on.
But in dive they will be sick. So I don't think they drop like massively, but I think they'll struggle in playoffs, and it might bite them in the end.
Do you think that so NYXL, I agree, has probably the best potential for between them, Vancouver, and Titans. But
Dude, Philly.
okay, I'm talking about the top teams.
Gotcha.
We're just talking top teams right now. But I do feel like London is, I mean, you get Profit on a good day. Because I know Profit's inconsistent, but their whole team is inconsistent only when it doesn't matter. Their
I
whole
don't even
team
know if I think Profit's inconsistent. His team's definitely is, but I think Profit's like always putting in work personally.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but
I mean,
their
maybe
whole
it doesn't
team
carry
kind of
and
takes
win
times off.
always, but yeah, that's
But
fair.
they only take it off when it doesn't matter. They obviously they won the state season 1. Like they know how to rally.
On the back
They know
of
how to.
Gestures Orisa, I might add.
Yeah, I think Gesture, I think Profit, I think they all popped off. I don't think you can give that to one single player. And I agree. I think Deathblow thinks it's Gesture. I think a lot of people think it's Profit. I think maybe we were not looking at the supports as well as we should have, because maybe they had a big impact in it. Okay, just saying. But I,
I mean,
I
Bedoza was
don't
playing Tracer in the playoffs, so like he was definitely one of the best like support flex players, right? Remember that the support was
right,
playing all these wacky picks, and Jonak definitely looked weak at that. But hey, we're in 2-2-2, so guess what? Doesn't matter. He gets to play Ana and Zen for the rest of his life, and thank goodness
right.
for that.
Well, I also think it will help like 222 or the 2CP stall, right? Like you
Thank
can't just
goodness.
freaking switch to Wrecking Ball when you're the,
And May and
Anna. Yeah,
Yep.
and
Now
it's
only
like,
DPS can switch to May.
yeah. So I mean, I think that's good, right? So you can switch within your zone. But I don't know. I feel like London could do really well in this, although London only kind of stepped above NYXL last season when 222 wasn't the actual like go-to meta anymore, right? Like NYXL like sandbagging stage 4 appearing to be not the case, and
I'd still
London was
stand
able to
by. They
adapt.
weren't sandbagging. They were just
Yeah, I don't
resting
think they
on their
were either.
laurels.
Like, well, and I just don't think they were as good at that meta.
No,
well,
they
they were
definitely weren't.
practicing less. Like that's factually true.
Right.
So were they
Yeah,
trying to sandbag, or were they just practicing less and working less? Like
yeah. I
technically that's
think.
still sandbagging. Like that's what sandbagging is.
Yeah,
They
I
weren't
guess
trying to
maybe.
lose. They just weren't working as hard.
Yeah.
That, and
Okay. You said yeah. Instead of throwing, sandbagging. Gotcha. Okay.
it's not like tanking in basketball. It's not like, oh, we want a better draft pick, so we're just going to drop these
Right.
games. It's not, they weren't tanking, but they definitely weren't working as hard. Also, I mean, there was like the super powered Hanzo that came in, and they didn't even play libero on it, so a lot of questionable decisions. I will be bringing this up to them in our next meeting, by the way. But anyway, yeah, it's interesting when you talk about a team like London because Bob brought up Philly, which I don't think in the standings are too far off. You're like, oh, not Philly. We're talking about top teams. London. It's like, well, yeah, they won last year, but they got to the same final game that Philly did. And I think we are going to see definitely some of those mid-tier teams have a shot. Like a lot of these teams have some star playmakers that on a hot run into even the play-ins might make again into the playoffs, just like happened last year. And I don't know who's it's going to be. I don't think anybody is in a safe spot to guarantee like, oh, they're just going to go in and win. London could do it. There's a bunch of teams that are like variable like London that could as well. The only thing that I feel pretty confident in betting on is that Vancouver and Shock will not both be 2 and 3 or in the top 3. I think one of them will start to like drop in performance. Maybe not in like standings, but by the time we get to playoffs, I don't think all those two are like going to the finals or something or deep into the playoffs. I doubt that's going to happen. I think one of them's at least one is going to get hit by the change.
I think San Francisco, this is just my opinion, but I think San Francisco will self-destruct. I think they have way too many DPS players on their team that have been waiting for this opportunity. And as soon as they get it and they start playing certain ones over others, the other ones will start to become toxic and leave. And I just think that this is the moment I've been waiting for, to be real.
Thank you so much. Please, I've been looking far and wide for a friend to criticize San Francisco Shock. It's just me and you against the world because
Okay.
Oh
everyone
no,
else disagrees.
it's not just you two. It's definitely me too. I play as the only one on this podcast who has supported the Shock. I had to eat crow when they actually did good this season because we talked about that and
Well,
just
instead of eating crow, I waited and said, well, that's fine. They're fine right now because these players aren't competing because there's not really anything to compete for yet. But once we get to playing damage, I feel like they're going to go and self-destruct. And I think we will see it.
Well,
We've already seen him get Baby Bay out. We've already seen him lose a couple people, like.
It seems obvious to me that they talk about grinding Striker on Widow. Then he starts, doesn't look very good. They bench that squad because it's like I believe someone said Krusty said that if they won map 1 in the stage 3 playoffs, they would have kept that lineup running the mirror basically, but they lost pretty badly. Which I don't think is a terrible coaching call, but I do question the fact that a lot of us analysts that I spoke to, commentators, content creators, think Architect is probably better on Widow than your hit scan specialist Striker.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe. That's a terrible thing. that is not good if that's the case, right? Like, and I don't think Architect is a top tier Widow either. So there's going to be some conflict. We know Sinatra
Striker's Widow last season at the end, the last that we got to see him play, is as good as AKM's Widow. It's popping off here and there, but it's not your Carpe, it's not your Linkser, it's not your Saya player. It's just not.
And when I agree with you, and the thing that I find with these like medium tier Widows is that it's not like they're not owl quality. It's just there's some extra little bit of magic that lets some of these nutty Widows be more accurate and fierce towards headshots. Like Taimu's got it, Saya players got it, Pine's got it, and some of these other guys like that are just good. They play the angles right, like they do the fundamentals well. They just don't have that little bit of talent control to be able to flick to the head a bit better. And you see that like AKM, I'm sorry, buddy. I know you guys are a fan of them. Like I don't like them benching Taimu for AKM because I think he's got this style where he's I think he's got one of the best McCrees that I've ever seen, and his soldier's fine. And like his fundamentals are great. It's just that you need the Taimu level of like craziness up against some of these top level players, and that's what I think we're going to see, especially out of Stitch and the San Francisco guys.
The difference between Taimu and most Widows in the league is Taimu will see SBB's translocator, and instead of destroying it so his team can kill him, he'll wait for him to come back and then just pop the headshot right off the bat. I don't know how to even explain what it is, but it's what Carpe has. It's what a few of them have, but most of them don't. And they all have mechanical skill, but some of them have that just hunger that I don't even know what to call it.
I also feel like it's easier, though, when you're a specialized player to understand your kind of positioning and awareness of the other players that are playing, right? And let's be real here, like playing against goats or Sombra goats, like there wasn't a lot to like analyze. It's not like, oh God, are they gonna switch to Genji? No, they're not, right? Like you've got like 6, maybe 7 players to really prepare for. And I think that it just made it where they could hone in on that, extra knowledge that they had, as opposed to a player like AKM, who has been a kind of career flex player, right? Like we all know about the AKM blade and the, Widow and the God, he played everything.
His far is really good.
Yeah, in AKM's defense, like he's could still be the best soldier in the league. It's just nobody needs a soldier.
Right. He's like Jake on Tracer, right? Like, yeah, nobody needs that. But side note,
he's
Jake's
like
Tracer
Defran
did look much better this season.
Soldier.
No, AKM on Genji was like Jake on Tracer.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Definitely. It was bad. But okay. So like looking at some other teams, I think Shanghai still looks good. Like DM and Ding, like everybody that we talked to in Atlanta was talking them up, and I'm wondering if DM might take Carpe's crown.
I think he's holding it right now. I think it's on Carpe to show up because I'm afraid for Carpe, man. And he's was my season 1 MVP. I'd love to go into 10 minutes about why I think that, but like
I think EQO, but we could talk about that later.
He's really strong as well, but Widow play to me just has the most carry impact out of any role, which means it's kind of biased in that way. And Carpe was that kind of guy where he would just turn team fights winnable, and it was big in the playoffs. This is kind of where I'm getting this whole like, you better bring a Widow to playoffs, guys. Like it's pretty important. Like it's one of the most important things you should bring on your trip. Actually, like if you leave it at home, like you might as well just go back. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's how
maybe I would have gotten to watch more of the playoffs, right? Like.
And so what teams don't have a good Widow? I could think Valiant. I mean, unless like Shax can play it.
Can KSF? I don't know. I can't confidently say.
And then
I mean, a lot of these players haven't had to play DPS in a year, right? Like we'd
What
have to think
about-
back to old contenders or before goats.
Like Chengdu Hunters,
Yeah, not very good.
Boston Uprising. Who else? Seoul. Well, Seoul has Fleta. Fleta could still pop off, but
Yeah, he struggled carrying the load last year, though.
Washington Justice has Corey. Trying to think. I don't know that I remember seeing Stitch on the Vancouver Titans.
This is assuming I'm right about the whole like Widow is mostly the damage roll.
Yeah, but I think you
I
probably
think it's
are.
right.
Because
Isn't
now
Color
there's
Hex
two.
on Boston a
now
Widow?
there's two
He looked
squishies.
decent on Widow when he got to play it.
Yeah.
And I like Blase too. I think Blase's got some pretty nice heroes in his disposal. Like his Doom and Genji are pretty good.
But
I
is
like.
Doom
Maybe I just
gonna
like
be
the
good
player.
though in a 2-2-2?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I know.
The only thing I
See,
can
there's so
guarantee is that we're
much.
gonna bunker and Widow. Like that's I'm. There's no way that those. There's not enough counters to those things for me to think they won't get a lot of playtime. So maybe some maps you can just play Genji Tracer Dive. I don't know, or whatever. But I think any map you can play bunker.
I mean,
you'll
if-
have a Widow with it.
If Genji Tracer Dive comes back, then you have to look at Paris, who has Shadow Burn in the Genji and soon in the Tracer. I mean, there's just so much going forward that is so exciting for the league. And me as a content creator, I am rejuvenated by this entire change. It's got Freedo going on multiple podcasts throughout one day just to talk about it. It's a good thing for everybody, and I don't do you guys have any? The only downside I can see to this change for the league is that I'm not going to get to see young Jin on Doom.
Not in 3 DPS anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
maybe
not
he
going to get
does.
to see that.
He probably is not starting over Ding and Diem. Let's just be real. Like, I don't see a world where that's the case. I think, okay, so there's things that might look like downsides, but maybe won't be. In my opinion, anyway, I think in 2-2-2, there'll be way more blowouts. Whereas right now, for the past 3 stages, it felt like anybody could beat anybody. And like, hold on a sec. I think this is just a product of GOATs, okay? Because in GOATs, if they use ults and you don't use ults, your chance to win next fight is massive. Like you have to be so poorly coached to not at least win one fight when they use ults and you don't, okay? And then you have control and you snowball ults. Like again, I
Ghost
went
is all
on-
about ult management, right? That's all it considered was ult management. And
Well,
yes,
and
I know
team
communication,
timing.
teamwork, and yes. But the biggest
And
thing,
Brig play, which we couldn't even see as viewers unless you watched it after the fact.
I'm all down for a GOAT's hatred rant. I'll do it all day, every day. But my point is, in this meta, like bunker, it's like set up, hit your skill shots, or lose. There's not like an easy press Q button, or we will survive forever now because we have 3 support ults, or there isn't these easy answers that are pure strategy based, which is why, to me, I always rant and get a little crazy when I talk about this. There is people out there that say like GOATs is the height of strategic depth, but I'm like, well, learn to dive up against the bunker, because that's like you talk about the AKM blade. Well, how many Anubis full holds are there going to be this stage? I wonder, because guess what? Sure, a lot harder to dive into bunker when it's super powered right now, even if dive's the best thing, right? Dive might be the best answer to bunker, more so even than mirroring it. We'll have to see. But executing that with teamwork to get your angles and coordinating at the right time and hitting your shots, it's just way harder than GOATs, because GOATs you
Definitely.
eventually could win some team fights. That's what I'm trying to say. Whereas
Right.
in this new format, you can get full held easily. Like, yes, in GOATs that could happen too. I know that, but
not
it'll
as
happen
easily.
more
Like,
often.
if Widow keeps popping you in the head as you come out of spawn, or
Yeah.
if Widow, as
You
you're
might
trying
get
to move on to the
stomped
choke,
more.
like, yeah,
Well,
I think that's a good point.
It's
And
definitely
some people might not like that, but I think that's going to happen.
It's definitely going to
More
be
exciting.
exciting. Like going in, like we're in a whole new world, and like unfortunately, we can't predict everything, and that's a good thing. So you'll have to tune in next week to actually see what happened.
Well,
But-
I think two more things.
Oh, you go ahead. You go ahead. But then we're gonna close out the show. It's been a long one.
One though, I think we're kind of like at a like close to zero slate here for the most part on most teams, right? Because we don't know what to expect. We don't know which compositions are going to come out next week. We don't know what they're going to play, who's going to play on the teams. And I think that that's exciting, right? So I think next week will be really interesting. And I think it'll be kind of similar to the beginning of maybe it was stage 2 or stage 3 where they like thought Goats was dead because the Brig nerf, but then Goats wasn't dead, right? It was like week 1, there was a lot of crazy comps, and then it was all back to Goats, right?
Stage 2.
Yeah, but I think that that's exciting, and I think you also have to look at what are these players' capability of playing this hero when they've been working so hard to play Zarya or Brig or something. You know what I mean? Like Linkser looked rusty on Widow when he came out on Widow a couple times. And I think that's because he's been working really hard at getting his Zarya to be capable of playing in the comp. But my question is, do you think that the diversity we saw in stage 3 was a product of them knowing about the 222 roll lock?
Definitely. Definitely. I don't think stage 3 would have been what it was if they hadn't have been told early. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I think Sombra Goats may have more. So I'd like to say I could read their minds and be like, for sure, you knew, so you were working towards this anyway. Maybe with this like Shanghai, they're like, let's just lean into damage anyway. Like whatever. Like we're gonna be playing next stage.
Like Houston just played damage a lot, and they've
also had social pressure
before, though.
Yeah, they also had social pressure to do it. So yeah, that example, you're probably right. They're like, what do we have to lose? Like stage 4 is gonna be damage anyway. We might as well double down on it now. But what I was gonna say is that I think Sombra Goats, as much as I watched and studied stage 3, which wasn't a ton, but I think the exploit Bob's I'm surprised he's not perking up with like the biggest smile. There you go, Bob. He's like, I called this beginning of the year. Sombra's the most OP character. I'm like,
I called it like the first episode of season 1. Al recap. I was sitting in the guild hall. I said, I think Sombra's going to be the most beneficial character, and then it just didn't happen. I was like, I guess I was wrong.
I thought it was super interesting how they developed this, though, where normally in Goats, all the resources go to the main tank. You let him swing, he gets space, you get angles, you win. That was how you originally played it. People try to run Sombra Goats, it required you to be passive, so the enemy could just run you down, and it was like, well, we don't have the resources they do, so we just die. Like, that's how it worked, until they realized that, okay, we do have to kite, but instead of putting our resources in our tank, we're not saving the tank. If they run us over, we just lose anyway. We're going to keep running away, and we're going to pocket our Sombra, because if we pocket her, then all of a sudden she just farms the D.Va forever. And it's like the D.Va's like, it used to be the D.Va turns around, shoos away the Sombra, she runs away, downtime, not getting as much EMP, not doing as much damage. Instead, now it's armor pack, bubble, haha, D.Va, you're DMX now. Like, it's like, now I have EMP. And then if you farm EMP faster, well, you win every fight. That's awesome to me when teams can learn something like that. I mean, it's unfortunate that was in Goats meta, so it wasn't that interesting, but it was the most interesting thing that happened all year. And because that rotation started, then all of a sudden, like, damage was sort of like in the mix more, I think. Sorry, I went on a big rant, but I think it's because that was figured out that you could flex off of Sombra Goats or into Sombra Goats. Like, you could start off with damage and then swap into Sombra Goats, knowing that, like, okay, because I've got the Sombra ultimate, which is OP. So now that my Goats characters can farm up their ults off of this Sombra, like the way it works with the ult economy and swapping heroes, it used to ruin you so that it wasn't a point to play damage mostly, because what am I going to do with this bongo on, this point where I can't even set up a reset? I just have to lose it, right? And the ult economy is really important for that, because we're playing payloads and stuff. It just matters how much time's on the clock, right? We just got to drain time on the clock. Doesn't even matter if we win. We just got to drain the clock. So,
and if you went damage first, then your ultimate advantage was so behind the team that started defense on Goats that it's like you were in a lose-lose situation at that point. But with Sombra, you're right. It's like, she's like, it's all right, guys. I got this. I'll just take away all their ultimates that they've built while you guys gain up yours, and then we'll be even again.
Yep, and it works so well because the Goats comp was so centered on having everyone in one spot, and Sombra's ult is the size of the Earth. You know, it's huge.
Do you think Sombra will be as powerful in 222?
Well, it's important to remember that we're getting our live patch now with 222 lock. So the balancing that's on the PTR now with ultimate charge rate reduction across the board, massive change, maybe the biggest. Sombra got nerfed a little bit, and Orisa, Brig change, all that. That's not going to be in stage 4, I believe.
Mhm.
Like unless someone changes.
That's from what we understand. It's not going in. I really wish it would be, but it's not.
And
So with
the
that
ult
being-
nerf like on everybody isn't going to be in there, right?
Correct. So that means I think Sombra's EMP will still be like, as much as I was like, well, now you got to learn how to dive. You don't get a free win. Wait, hold on. Never mind. Scratch that. You do get free wins with EMP. So you eventually can farm EMP and then, execute with that. So
Yeah,
that
But
was
EMP
EMP won't
is
hit
still-
everybody.
But it'll
But
be
it won't hit
good.
everybody.
It'll be good against bunker though.
yeah, because teams more or less form around the bunker. Yeah, I think Sombra will still be strong. So
Mhm.
for that, because it's so flexible in what it does. And unless the only way it wouldn't, like, I would question it a bit on the next patch, because then it might be, well, the I don't know, I have no idea, I just can't even predict this. The sync of how the ults work, like when ults come online when matters so much, because it's like, well, I have EMP and now I use it, they farm it up, they have these ults, the sync and tempo of that as it goes through a game is really important. So if all the ult charge rates are lower and it doesn't snowball an advantage as much, well, maybe Sombra's not as good in the next patch. But they're not even, I don't even think they're done in the next patch. I think they're going to patch more things. So who knows what
Yeah.
that's going to look like after it's all said and done.
For sure.
Yeah, they've even gone to say that like they might rework all the off tanks to be more like main tanks, which would be a really big push, but they've said if they need to do it, they will do it based on the game. So we'll just have to see. All I can say is it's an exciting time in Overwatch League, and if you like this game, then now all we need is free to play, and then floodgates are open.
And mobile. Play on your cell phone.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
mobile.
No, don't do that.
They're
Please
gonna
don't.
wait for BlizzCon to announce that, Fredo. I don't know if you heard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's the
Yep.
new thing at BlizzCon, right? They did
Mobile.
Clash of
Diablo.
Overwatch.
Yeah, Diablo Mobile was so received so well that I think they're gonna do Overwatch Mobile this year.
What's wrong? Don't you guys have phones?
Yeah. Nobody has phones.
All right, well, we are gonna wrap up this massive episode. Thank you guys for coming. I wanted to kind of talk about fantasyowl.com. It's a new way to play fantasy Overwatch. It's a daily model that you can get into. There's not a whole lot of barrier of entry. You can play 1 day a week, whatever you want. You gain levels on the site. You gain coins to then use coins to make more coins. It's that whole what's
You can
the
get coins from watching our videos.
Oh yeah. You could also get
I mean, that's
coins
cool.
by watching our interviews on the website. So I definitely would recommend you check out fantasyowl.com. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow us at @OwlRecap. If you want to say something a little bit longer, send your emails to contact@owlrecap.com. If you want to join our Discord, you can do so by going to your browser of choice and typing in discord.me/OmnicLab. We share that with our parent podcast, Omnic Lab. You should come in. We have a lot of conversation about a lot of Overwatch. We stream live every week, usually at 10 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/OwlRecap. You can check our live shows out on youtube.com/OwlRecap. You can find us on almost every podcatcher you could think of. If you want to support us, the best way to do that is by listening to the show and just telling your friends. If you want to go a step further, you could leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. If you want to go even further than that, you can check out patreon.com/AlRecap. All right, this has been a monster of a show, but I am so excited going forward. Mel, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Mel Overwatch, or you can find me on the Cavalry talking general Overwatch.
And Freedo, where can we find you and the most educational Overwatch news, updates, everything? Where can we find it?
See, you ruined my joke because you said every educational and then a bunch of other stuff. If you just said educational, I was gonna say Jane, but then like, that doesn't do the other thing. So anyway, at Your Overwatch YT on Twitter, please follow that. Your Overwatch on YouTube. And please also, as I said earlier, check out the NYXL video I made. I plan to do some more with them. And the more support it gets, the more likely I will continue to do so. So please check out their NYXL YouTube channel, just NYXL. And
Yeah, it's
the video I made was
youtube.com/NYXL.
Yep. And the video I made was, will NYXL be the best 222 team? And might be, maybe they win the whole thing and I look like a genius.
It
That'd be
doesn't
great.
sound biased at all.
I like you, Mel. Thanks for
Actually,
having me on, everybody.
when do we expect Eddie to come back to the channel?
I don't think soon, unfortunately. I think it's me and Liam
No.
for the near future.
All
Sorry.
right, well, I am definitely happy to have Liam back, but I just miss I'm Eddie the Chump, and this is
He
another
did an
video
Atlanta
for Your
homestand
Overwatch.
video?
You did?
He did. But yeah, I just missed that beautiful accent, and I think you guys make a great team. So try and talk him into it.
He does streaming for us on Facebook. Like Liam headed that for a time, and now he's traded off, and now he gets the pleasure of working with me, which is an obnoxious and overbearing thing, I'm sure. So
Oh well,
he's under the iron fist now.
so like
Content creation.
So like where can people find Eddie streaming?
Yo on Facebook gaming /Yo Gaming. We call it Yo Gaming. And he's been we tweeted out on Twitter. The times are sometimes skewed a little earlier because they do it earlier in the day for the EU times. But he's been streaming some Overwatch and some Destiny mostly, but a bunch of different games as well.
Nice. All right. Well, guys, you can find me on Twitter at Blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. Thank you guys so much, and we are headed into a new frontier of Overwatch 3.0. Let's go, dude!